It's Just Business with Steve Thomas and your host, Chris Larry. Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of It's Just Business. I am of course not Chris Larry. Chris Larry is traveling overseas right now, actually, so he cannot be here, much to our chagrin. However, we have the normal super sub, Alex Z's. How are you, Alex?
I am good. I'm getting used to this daylight savings time thing that we had to do just this morning.
I know it cost me an hour's sleep because we record early, and I'm in
Yeah.
Central Time, and so I'm an hour earlier, so it makes me get up at 6 a.m. on a Sunday, but that's okay.
Yeah, exactly. And I woke up and I was like, oh, my clock is way off still.
See, it used to be like these clocks, you had to set them before
Right.
you went to bed, but now a lot of clocks will automatically adjust because they're, Wi-Fi, so you don't
Yeah,
have to worry
exactly.
about it now.
Which, let's be honest, that does help quite a lot. That your phone is always just going to be the right time. Makes your
Well,
life a little.
because I'm the type that I'm paranoid, so I set multiple alarms to
Mm-hmm.
get up from like different devices, and ones that one will like make me get up out of bed,
Right.
to turn it off, and those will automatically switch. So that's it's helpful.
Mm.
Um, so I don't have a concert report, but I do have a movie review.
Okay.
We're
What
gonna
movie
do a
did you
movie
go
review.
see?
I went to go see Creed 3 last night.
Oh, how was that?
It was very entertaining. It
Yeah.
was sort of a B plus level remake of Rocky 4 a little bit.
Sure. That makes
Yeah,
sense.
yeah. The fight scenes, I would say it was entertaining. Recommend the movie, if, but it's I mean it's not going to win Academy Award. The fight scenes were just, I don't know, not quite as good as the Rocky fight scenes, I guess.
Sure.
But it was still a fun movie to see. The plot is basically a guy comes back from Creed's, past as a
Right.
delinquent youth,
To
and that's,
avenge his vengeance or something.
well, something like that, yeah.
Yeah.
And so that's the baddie,
Yeah. I mean, look, all these movies, it's pretty much the same plot, right? I mean, other than the original Rocky, in which it was a classic underdog story, every other Rocky movie is Rocky has to get revenge, or now Adonis Creed has to get revenge. They're all the same. It's we're gonna get revenge in the ring. Like,
Something along those lines, yeah. Like Rocky 1, Rocky was truly a great movie. It really
oh,
was.
well, it won an Academy Award.
It won Best Picture, if I
Yeah,
recall.
that's what I mean.
But normally I discount that. If winning Best Picture normally means it's a bad movie in my view, but this time it was right. But like I hated Rocky 2. Rocky 2 is just boring.
Hmm.
I didn't like Rocky 2 at all. Rocky 3 was a lot of fun. I loved Rocky 3.
That's the one with Mr. T,
Yes,
right?
that was a
Okay.
ton of fun.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Is it going to
yeah.
win awards? No, but it was a ton of fun. Rocky 4, there's your revenge.
Oh, that one's the most revenge. Well, the Mr. T one, Mr. T murders his friend, and it's just like a thing. And then Rocky
Mr.
gets
T
his
didn't
revenge.
murder his friend. No,
Yeah, he
no,
does.
no.
He like pushes. It's not Mickey. He
No, well,
like.
Mickey died. Mickey was the old trainer who died of natural causes in the locker room. Mr. T, I don't think killed anybody.
I thought Mr. T punched him, and that's how Mickey died. It's been like 20 years since
I
I've
don't
seen
think
it.
because I don't think Mick ever came out of the locker room in
Oh,
that
okay.
movie.
I thought Mr. T killed him.
No, because I think the conflict was that Rocky was all messed up because Mickey died, and so then Clubber Lang he wasn't in
Oh,
his
okay.
right frame of mind, and Clubber Lang knocked him out.
Gotcha. All
But
right. It's
but
been
but
20
there,
years.
yeah, there was a stink. It was see my oldest thought that used to think that was like his favorite movie, and so he watched it. And then the one that was dumb was Rocky 5. That was
Oh, yeah,
just
yeah.
that was
Yes.
poorly done.
With Gunner or whatever. Yeah.
Whatever. Yeah. Whatever his name was. But anyway, so point is, Creed 3, worthy
Hmm.
sequel. Recommended. There's hardly any decent movies on in the theater anymore. So this
Yeah.
was
I mean,
one.
it's either that or you're going to go see Cocaine Bear right now. Like, that's it.
And do you think that that would be a movie that I would want to see?
No, although it is a comedy, so like it's obviously be making fun of things, but that's not
I
your
know,
style.
but I know that's just not my
Yeah,
thing. And like
yeah.
all the superhero movies, those none of
No,
those
no, those
interest
aren't
me
you.
very much.
I'm going to go to the XFL game tonight, and I went last week. So
It's in a
that's my.
theater.
No, no,
It's
that's live. I'm going to go.
Oh, okay. I
Actually,
was like, okay, wait a minute. You're this is a total non sequitur. Okay,
yeah,
you're
yeah.
going to the XFL
If we're
game.
talking about recommendations, go to football games at the XFL. They're silly and they're ridiculous. If you're in DC, they're a lot of fun. I don't know about Houston. Houston's having attendance problems. It sounds like, but
I don't know. I mean, I told you on the Hogstye, I went to that rally,
right,
and
right.
I
No, but
as
I've
res-
been looking at attendance numbers. Their numbers are way down.
really, I mean, I did go. I as a result of that rally, I did watch the second half of the game last week,
Hmm.
which was okay. It's decent football. Now,
They don't
where
have any
is?
good quarterbacks for the most part.
I don't think so. I don't think they have anybody knows.
No, no.
They
I
had
mean,
they had two guys speak at this rally that I didn't know who either one of them were.
hmm, yeah,
Now,
that's about
now,
right.
now, what stadium is the DC team playing in?
In our soccer stadium in downtown, in the DC
Well, see,
United's.
that place is used to being empty.
Well, it's a
Soccer.
24,000 seat stadium, and they're getting 16, 17,000 in it. I mean, those are pretty good numbers in my book.
Yeah, probably better than soccer. Yeah, like
Uh,
the Houston team
well,
is
you got
playing.
to remember, DC's a big soccer town
Is there
compared
a
to.
such thing? Isn't that an oxymoron in and of itself? Big
Oh no,
soccer
no, the,
town.
the soccer team sells out when they're good all the time.
I don't understand soccer. Let's hear.
Well,
Tell you
and we're
what.
also an international city, so
Well,
like,
yeah, that's true. Yeah.
yeah.
Speaking of the real football, though,
Okay,
since
yeah.
Alex
Let's
is
talk. Let's switch to real football.
yeah, since Alex is here, we thought we'd give an update on the Washington Seawards sale.
Right.
Um, here, because it's really a business. It's a really a business story, and obviously the team hasn't sold yet. But Chris and I are kind of sick of it, and so we've skipped Dan Snyder for the past several weeks, sort of waiting on news. And so, but
Right.
there is news. Alex, you want to start off and telling us the latest in the sale?
All right, so the latest things we've heard in the sale and I don't want to recap stuff we've talked about on the
No.
Hogsty too much. But obviously there was an owners meeting in Palm Beach, Florida. Dan Snyder didn't show up; his wife went instead. And there were some stories that came out about that. The owners still think he's going to sell. They're confident. Blah 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 blah. Uh, but we covered a lot of that in the Hogsty. There's still more rumor milling about the whole Snyder versus Jeff Bezos thing. Um, there's the whole thing with Dan wanting a confidential or not a confidentiality agreement. What do you call it? He wants to be indemnified if this team is eventually sued for all his shenanigans, which it probably will be because he had a lot of shenanigans. Um, the biggest news in DC though, so there's three bidders we knew about. Uh, Frittata or whatever his name is down
Tillman
there.
Fertitta.
I'm calling him
I
Frittata.
well,
So
yeah. I watched a couple of Rick Snyder's videos. Our buddy Rick Snyder, he keeps
yeah,
pronouncing Fertitta wrong.
yeah, yeah.
It's
Well,
Fertitta.
it's fun to call people the wrong name
It
sometimes.
is.
So
Tillman's
anyway,
not the type of guy that would take that lightly, though.
no, I'm sure he wouldn't. So there, you got that one, that guy. Word is he is kind of maxing out at 5.5 billion on his bid. Then you have, of course, the Bezos thing that everyone obsesses about.
Well, let's stop you right there.
Yeah.
So Jeff Bezos, the news that came out relative to Bezos this past week was that apparently Bank of America had him sign a confidentiality agreement. Now, what that
Hmm.
means is, because again, having done this a lot, this means that Bezos has access to the team's financial records.
Okay.
Because that's what you do when you hand over like due diligence, like pre-sale due diligence stuff. You make them sign a confidentiality agreement, meaning that they
Hmm.
can't just go publish it and whatnot. So that means that that doesn't necessarily mean that Danny's going to sell to him, but what that means is that he's in the game to that extent. That's what it means.
I mean, it tells me that if Dan really said no to Bezos, that probably would not have happened. Would
Yes.
be my guess.
Yes. Yes.
So there was also related to Bezos. Uh, the guy who tracks Dan Snyder's yacht on Twitter is also tracking the airplanes of Jeff Bezos, and he found out
Alex's
Jeff
favorite thing.
Bezos and Jerry Jones were hanging out together in, I think it was Turks and Caicos. Uh, I'm assuming on Turks. I don't know. I don't know
Maybe
which
they're
one you
just
fly with.
trying to chase Caribbean strippers. I mean, it does,
Maybe, but they both flew there at the exact same time and left at the exact same time. So
Daisy Dollars is
yeah, I'm just
attraction, I
saying,
guess.
like, one, you should all follow him, the guy who tracks Dan Snyder's yacht, because
It's
it's
Alex's
hilarious.
favorite account.
It is my favorite account to follow. But
Well, let's
anyway,
talk. So let's think about what that means. So what that would mean, realistically, I'm just kidding about the strippers. I mean,
right,
well, it's Jerry Jones, so you never know. But um, I assume that means that Jerry is trying to broker a peace agreement between
hmm
Bezos and Danny. That's what I assume
yeah,
that means.
that's what I would assume too,
Yeah.
and that Jerry is still the kingmaker. We all
Yes, he
know that.
is.
Um, but the best news in my mind, and I'm saying this bias, Josh Harris is the third guy who we all know is trying to buy the team. And he is a guy from Bethesda, Maryland. He owns the 76ers and the New Jersey Devils right now. He also had a bid in about equal to the other one, the 5.5, but he's taking on a second partner to help boost his bid. Mitchell Rails, who is from the Rails family in DC. They are multi-billionaires. The interesting thing about Rails, in my mind, one, also a local guy, grew up in Bethesda as well. Went to, I can't remember the name of the school, but he went to like one of the public schools in Bethesda. Like, even though he grew up very rich, he comes from a very grounded family, which I like to hear. That his father started a company, didn't want his kids to be spoiled, so when his father passed away, he sold the company back to the employees. The kids didn't get money from the father, like they didn't inherit much of anything. So he comes from that kind of grounded family, which I feel like is a good sign. And everything that I've heard about Rails when it came out, everything people said is this is a guy who treats people very well. The opposite of Dan Snyder. He he is all about high quality. Like, he's very into the arts world here. Like, he's on the board of the National Gallery and things like that. He and when they did like upgrades to a bunch of art museums here, he was the mastermind behind all that. So he knows that kind of construction world quite a bit, which, Steve, you know as well as I do, that's going to be key for them getting a new stadium.
Well,
And
I've
he's
said this
very well
before.
connected locally in that
I
regard.
mean, part of Danny's problem is that he's not a real estate guy. He doesn't really know how to do major real
Right.
estate. He really did need somebody. And so, yeah,
Rails
I
isn't
the,
real estate, but he knows construction, which is
well,
going to
yeah,
be
it's kind of it goes hand in hand, obviously.
right.
And in terms of this, so the NFL, when it does ownership, appoints someone, designates someone as the principal owner, and that's
Right.
the name that does all
The
the
majority guy. Right.
it's the majority guy, the guy who, and you have to have a minimum, I think 30%
hmm
of the team. And then the minority partners really don't have any say in anything. So I don't know how much this Mitchell Rails guy will, the kind of influence, the direct influence he'll have on the team.
hmm
But I think it's a good sign for those of you rooting for like decent people to be a part of the team,
Right.
sort of as a
That
general
that's the
construct.
team that you want to root for in that case, in my mind,
Yeah,
at least.
exactly. Because the rest of them
Yeah.
are just, Jeff Bezos really is a horrible person. I mean, I've said before, in case
Right.
you haven't heard my spiel, I mean, Bezos um, is a tyrant, okay? If you look at what happens inside Amazon headquarters,
Yeah.
they're all terrified. The turnover is very, very, very high.
hmm
They have totally unreasonable demands in terms of work, work hours, productivity, all of that. I mean, Jeff Bezos is not who it's just the name you guys know. It's not a
Right.
guy you want.
Everyone
Until
just loves the money. That's all they want. They
yeah, right. But
right.
yeah, and Tillman Fertitta is kind of Dan Snyder only with success.
Right. Right. And so this team, this duo, I saw somewhere that their net worth combined is about $13.5 billion or something. So they definitely have the money at that point to make a serious offer. It sounds like.
Well, yeah, I mean, and none of these deals, unless well, Bezos maybe, but none of the rest of them are all cash deals. Okay,
No, of
that's
course
not
not.
how this stuff works, and so they have to put up a minimum equity injection. The NFL
Right.
has rules about this too, although they've waived them before they waived them for Danny.
Right.
This 2 years ago when he bought out his minority partners. I think it's 30%, and then the rest of it's going to be financed.
Right. You need
Probably.
about
I mean,
$2 billion cash up front.
yeah,
Is ballpark
realistically,
what we're
right.
saying. Yeah.
I mean, they can
And
obviously do more, but realistically, they're probably financing the bulk of the rest of it anyway.
right. Steve, I try not to be biased, but I'm definitely this is the team I'm rooting for to get it at this point because it seems like that these two guys, one, the fact that they're local does settle the whole like there's a 1% concern. It felt like that whoever buys it might want to just relocate the team at some point if they don't get a
Well, yeah,
stadium.
would Tillman Fertitta want to just move the team to San Antonio, for example?
Yeah, exactly. Hey, you know
I
what?
mean,
There
I'm
was
making that
already a
up,
San
but
Antonio Commanders at one point in
I
the
know.
like
Well,
minor leagues.
yeah, well, I think the new owner would surely have to rename the team. I mean, I would hope.
Probably,
Yeah.
probably. But yeah, that was. I think if you got two local guys, that's good. The fact that these both sound like they're very well liked throughout the community is a good sign too.
At a
So
minimum, not total jerks.
at minimum, not total jerks. They might be a little jerkish. I think anyone who's that high up is a little bit of a jerk at times. You have to be.
Right. But there's like
Right.
normal average jerk, and then there's Dan Snyder, Tillman Fertitta level jerk.
Right. I've met, I know a few millionaires, not any billionaires, but the millionaires I know, they can get jerky, but they can also be like, hey, you want to just come over and we'll all have dinner and hang out,
Well, like if you hear about the type of person Warren Buffett is,
Right.
believe it or not, he's a very grounded person. He lives in some old house in
The first house he
Omaha,
ever bought.
Nebraska, right?
Yeah.
And so it's you can get those type of people. You can get Dan Snyder. So now the NFL owners meetings have come and gone.
Right.
The original hope was that
Well, this was the prelim owners meetings came and gone.
it
The
was the
main
committee
owner.
meetings. Where you're
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I misspoke. That's the main meeting is like in 2 weeks, I think,
Right.
like the
And end of
24th or
March.
something.
Yes.
So the hope was, sort of the loose hope amongst the fan base and the people in the press who really don't know what they're talking about was that the team would be sold and then they could approve a new owner at the owners meeting in March, and we'd all march off to Never Never Land.
Right.
It's not beyond the realm of possible, but it's also highly unlikely. I
Hmm.
think at this point, you've only got 2 weeks to have an agreement. Assuming they've gotten through due diligence, a bid is accepted, then they have to negotiate an agreement. It's not impossible, but it's, I think, highly unlikely at this point.
I would think the best case scenario at this point is maybe at those owners meetings, Snyder's like, all right, here's the list of prospective buyers for you guys to vet. And they get to that point.
That
You
may
know,
be, yeah. I think that's the most realistic thing you could get. I mean, like a tactic admission that Danny wants to sell. That is
right.
in
Well,
fact
I
going to
think
sell.
he's done that. I
I don't
think,
know if he has done that. Why do you
uh,
think that?
I mean, just the stuff that's come out of the last meetings made it
Listen,
sound like
if he
he
real, I
did.
mean, granted, this is all kind of negotiating in the press, as I said before, but
Right.
he might legitimately not want to sell for less than 6 billion.
Oh, I'm sure he wouldn't want to, but
I mean, but that dude is stubborn,
right.
you know.
And the thing is, with that price point, it's going to take owners a long time to recoup the money, because,
Yes.
you know, even if this team gets back to where it was, you're still talking probably 30, 40 years to make $6 billion in net
Well,
profit.
that's not the only, cash in hand is not the only way to measure. If the asset increases in value,
Mm, sure.
simultaneous with earnings, it can be less than that. I mean, the problem, of course, with having like $3 or $4 billion finance is that has to be repaid.
Right.
So you're talking tens of millions of dollars a year. Now we
Sure.
learned like the ballpark of revenues for the team itself was what 100 and less than 200 million a year.
It had dropped to 150 is what they had said.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, right. And so
Although
even
that
as
didn't include the TV stuff. That was their individual, like what they bring in from
okay,
their.
okay,
Yeah.
fair enough. But point is, subtract 50 million a year from that. That's what I'm saying.
Right.
And so it's you know, that kind of valuation. Yeah, it's tough, but you have to think that the team value, unless something horrible happens in the NFL, that team valuations will continue to rise, and so you know they'd be in a better position. They won't have cash in hand, but you know, so
Right.
so that is a Snyder update. There's not a whole lot more than that to say. We just wanted to kind of give
Right.
kind of a loose update. So I think it's still a stay tuned, hope and pray. The world's on pins and needles. Will Danny do the right thing? Will he not? I still am not 100% convinced that he will. I think
Well,
so.
modus operandi for Dan Snyder. He doesn't do the right thing. You know.
No, that's right. That's exactly right. But think about this, Alex. Let's say the season starts and the team is not sold, and they don't do any big free agency moves, and
Hmm.
they don't draft a big name player in the draft. Think
Right. Which
about the attendance in the stadium next year.
I mean, here's the thing: people are buying season tickets right now, assuming Dan Snyder's gone. Our own co-host Dave has done that, where
Yes,
he bought season tickets, assuming Dan Snyder's going to be gone. I don't know how Dave's going to react if Dan Snyder's still there.
I know. I've wondered that myself. I mean, I wouldn't take the chance if I were still a fan and that, you know,
Oh, me
until he was
neither.
actually gone.
Me neither. And also I'm cheap. Season tickets, even for nosebleeds, are pretty expensive.
I think
But
I've told you before. I can't remember if I told it on the air or not. But when I put my name on the season ticket waiting
right,
list, the last time I lived in DC, which was the mid to late '90s, right
right.
when FedEx Field opened, and the waiting list at that time was, and so fast forward like something like 6, 7, 8, 9 years later, something like that.
Hmm.
I was now in Houston, and it was I want to say 8 or 9 years. I finally got the call, and they called me a couple times in the intervening time trying to get me to like buy premium tickets, and I could never
Yeah, yeah.
afford
They're
that.
looking for. They always do that. Try to get you to buy the luxury box right away.
Yeah, which well, they were trying to sell not they were trying to sell me the club level seats,
Oh,
which I
club.
wasn't.
Okay, sure.
Yeah, um, but anyway, and so my whole so I finally I thought, man, I'm on the list. I got to take the jump at the chance. You know, I've been on the list. So my whole thought was, I'm going to buy these 8 games, and I'm
Hmm.
going to sell them for. This is how dumb I was back then. I'm going to sell them for a profit, sell like 5 or 6 of these for a profit because
Everyone.
this is Washington and they're going to be great. And
That's
so
what
it'll be in demand.
everyone thinks.
Yeah. And so then I'm going to finance 2 or 3 trips a year to DC to go see these games. And I'll
Hmm.
take my dad along. I'll have enough money to pay for him too. And of course, that predictably fell totally apart. You know, and it was just a whole big waste. And it was a hassle to sell the tickets. And I was always mailing tickets out to people and
Yep.
people calling me about them. It was just it was a what you would call
It's
a
a tale
disaster.
that I've heard from many people, Steve. Not just you have made that mistake.
I
Um,
know it's like naturally you would. I mean, the team won 3 Super Bowls, and I was living in that reality, and you know,
right, right. A lot of people were. I remember hearing of a guy having that same dream after the RG3 rookie year. He's like, I'm getting season tickets, and RG3 is going to be a superstar. Don't worry about the ACL. And guess what?
I'm gonna sell all these tickets, make a lot of money, go to
Right.
see some games.
Yep.
Yeah,
All right. Why don't we could
let's
move
move
on
on.
from
Yeah,
yeah.
okay, you're right. So, Alex was trying to take over hosting duties here.
No, well, I was just trying to get us on track.
No, I know. Okay, so Lamar Jackson, another football story. Now,
Lamar Jackson.
we're not here to talk about his on the field performance, but what I want to talk about, because I think it's interesting, is what is going on with him from a business perspective, because I think it's
Hmm.
kind of fascinating. So the story here is that Lamar was tagged with the non-exclusive franchise tag by the Ravens, which means that Lamar can go negotiate with another team and sign a contract with another team. Then the Ravens have a right of first refusal. If the Ravens choose not to um, enact their option, then they will get as compensation 2 first round picks from the team that signs him.
Sure.
and that sounds wonderful. But one, it's not the exclusive tag, which normally you would put on an MVP winning quarterback, which they did not do here. And two, far more fascinating to me is that, excuse me, Lamar hasn't gotten a single offer. And a lot of teams have tapped out immediately, like within an hour.
Yeah.
Like the
Atlanta.
Falcons
Yeah.
did. Yeah, the Panthers, I think, did the same
Hmm.
thing. Washington has not done that, but they also haven't shown any interest in him. And so, what is going on here? Because again, Lamar Jackson won the MVP in 2019. No matter what you think of his playing ability, there's no doubt that he's been highly successful, at least up until the point in time in the playoffs. So, at a bare minimum, you think he could offer. So, what's going on here? I have lots of thoughts from a business perspective, but Alex, why don't you give me your thoughts?
Well, I mean, I am fascinated that there's been nothing, but I've listened to some counter arguments about it that do make sense. The fact that if a team puts a bid on, they have to basically put that money in reserve and can't be active in free agency. That's a big conundrum for teams. We talked about it a little bit on the show. That I can also understand teams just not wanting to give him the kind of contract he's looking for, this fully guaranteed long term deal, because of his injury history and the fact that as a running mobile quarterback, he's more likely to get injured than a pocket quarterback. And I get that. And, I don't think it's fair to just say every team doesn't want to do it because he's African American. Obviously, the three highest paid quarterbacks, I think, right now are all African American. So we know that's not an issue
Yeah, there's
anymore.
people that made that argument, and people we
Yeah.
know, and the argument's dumb. I mean, that's just
Yeah.
totally untrue.
Look, I hate the guy, but Deshaun Watson got a huge deal. Russell Wilson got a huge deal. Patrick Mahomes got a huge deal. I think those are the three highest paid quarterbacks right now.
Yeah, the person I'm thinking of is kind of a racist in his mind. I'll stop. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
but
Continue.
other than Aaron Rodgers, like those are your big contracts these days. Um, I am. I do think that there's some truth that teams are just kind of waiting and seeing. No one wants to tie up money. No one wants to. They all think Baltimore's going to come in anyway and match whatever he gets. Is the other thing, that seems to be the consensus. Is that
Um,
what? And like, so Steve, let's say you say, all right, we'll give you 200 million, and suddenly you can't spend in free agency, and then Baltimore comes in right at the last second and matches. You missed out on all free agency. That's a great argument against doing it.
okay, so that's part of it. But
Yeah.
I think the real issue here for Lamar is a business issue, and there's multiple things going on. Number one, he's his own agent.
Oh yeah.
Um, Lamar doesn't come across as very smart. He might be, but he doesn't come across that way. But far more importantly, he's not a business guy. He doesn't
Mm-hmm.
know how to negotiate. And even more importantly than that, the biggest role that an agent plays is to sell you.
Mm-hmm.
What the agent will do is make phone calls, use his network. Hey, don't you guys want Lamar? Look what he can do for you. You and I have had a relationship for 20 years, and I would never lie to you. Uh, you know, Lamar doesn't have anybody to sell him to teams but Lamar,
Mm-hmm.
and nobody's buying it because again, he's just a football player. This is not what he does. What he's trying to do is save 3%. Okay, because I would imagine the agent fee is probably something like 3%, and
Probably.
yeah, I think that's probably what it is. So that's what he's trying to do is save 3%. But what it's doing is it's costing him an advocate who can go out and sell him to teams. Maybe his agent could have called Atlanta and convinced Atlanta that they should take a chance on him. So that's one thing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that's a big deal.
Well,
No,
speaking of the agent aspect, having an agent probably would have helped him in that end of the last season, where I mean, it was not a good look for him that he was hurt, but not really that hurt, and missed the
oh,
playoffs and all that
absolutely.
stuff.
Well, yeah,
Like
and an agent might not have let it get to that point in the first place.
right,
An
that's what I'm
agent might
saying.
have convinced the Ravens to sign him. You
Sometimes
know,
an agent's job is not just to get you money, but also to convince you stop being an idiot. You know,
But
like
here's it. So there's that was working against him.
yeah.
And the other thing that's working, there's two other things I think that are working against him. One, another one is his contract demands are reportedly in the Deshaun Watson range.
Yes.
Like now, Lamar did not, like through people at one point denied that. But so here's the thing: Deshaun Watson got a 5 year, $230 million fully guaranteed contract.
Hmm.
That is, and then the other one, Kyler Murray got 5 years, 230 million with 189.5 million guaranteed,
Right.
which is a much greater percentage of guarantee than other contracts. Um, the
Yeah.
NFL, I can
Daniel Jones
promise.
got half guaranteed in his
Yeah, we're gonna get
contract,
to
for
Daniel
example.
Jones.
Yeah, yeah. I just want that's more normal than what those guys did. Is my point.
Yeah, and Kyler Murray's contract is 82% guaranteed. The NFL does not repeat not want to normalize a Deshaun Watson contract. That is how they go down the road of baseball and basketball.
Hmm.
They do not. From what I have read, the other owners are really, really mad at Jimmy Haslam for doing that, especially to a guy like Watson with all his problems. I mean, he's a slime ball.
It might be the worst contract ever given for
It could be for
those
an
reasons.
NFL contract at least. I don't. There's probably dumb soccer contracts out there, but yeah,
Yes.
certainly it's one of them. And so the idea, I think Lamar objectively has had much more success than Watson. So I
Oh, I
understand
would
his
take
point.
Lamar over any of the guys we've mentioned so far.
Oh, absolutely, I would.
Yeah. I mean, I know you've always been very high on him. I'm high on. I think he's a great quarterback too, but
Yeah.
yeah, and I would rather give him that kind of money than Deshaun Watson or Kyler Murray. Kyler doesn't care about playing football, and you can't trust Deshaun Watson around a woman. I mean,
Well,
like,
yeah, yeah. So the NFL, I think there's not collusion going on here necessarily, but I think that the owners have sort of decided that they're just not going to do this.
mhm,
Like even like the Kirk Cousins deal was only 3 years,
right?
and it wasn't in the over $100 million
No, it
guarantee.
was 80 something at that time,
Yeah,
right?
something
Yeah.
like that. Yeah, 5 years, 230 million and up is way out of bounds. So then now you have a guy who isn't good at negotiating, doesn't have an advocate for himself. That's apparently making contract demands that are simply just above and beyond what anybody wants to do. And
Right.
I've got news for you. Fully guaranteed contracts come with massive cap hits
Hmm.
because the dead cap is just, and the dead cap's enormous. The amount of money that's rolling over every year is enormous.
Yeah.
Like Deshaun Watson's cap hit this year will be 55 million, and there's no way to, only way to reduce that is to extend the years out. And,
Hmm.
and now that you've established a full guarantee standard, why would Watson ever compromise on it? So that's the problem. And then the other thing is what you're getting at here is what is the real market? You've
Right.
got to look at Deshaun Watson as an outlier. Kyler Murray is kind of an outlier too. Um, Daniel Jones, 4 years, 160 million. The guarantee was 82 million, so about
Yeah.
50%. And then Derek Carr got a similar contract, 4 years, 150 million, with 100 million guaranteed. So that's 2/3. So that's slightly more than Jones. So you put Lamar above those two for sure.
Well, so here, if I think if we're gonna look for comps, I think you're looking at. I mean, obviously, Aaron Rodgers is going to be. I mean, look, Lamar was an MVP, so you got to comp him to the other MVPs that are out there, right?
Right.
So Aaron Rodgers is making big money. He makes what, a $50 million year ish contract, something like that, but it's not all guaranteed. Um,
Well, Aaron Rodgers is 3 years, 150 million, with 100
right,
and fully guaranteed, 150 million guaranteed. And of course, the Packers are regretting that and talking about trading him to the
yeah,
Jets of all people.
right.
So I
What
would
about Patrick
argue
Patrick Mahomes? Maybe then. I mean,
Patrick Mahomes had a 10-year, $350 million contract that was not fully guaranteed, but
right.
basically locked in the Chiefs for 6 or 7 years because what it does is it has rolling guarantees 2 years out, and so in effect, that huge guarantees, and so in effect, it makes the Chiefs sort of have to plan to trade him or cut him like 2 years out, and that's
or you
un-
renegotiate or something.
yeah, and so
Yeah.
that's not that realistic. So that's Aaron.
I'm just saying, like, those are the guys who I would say he's closer to.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Um, he's better than Deshaun Watson. He's better than Kyler Murray. He's better. I mean, Brady's done now, so you can't really use Brady as a.
And you almost can't use Aaron Rodgers as a comp. I mean, he's a Hall of Famer.
He's also what, almost 40. He's 39, I think.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
it was a very weird situation, and
Yeah.
it was almost kind of a make good.
Something weird with Aaron Rodgers. What?
I know, no way. But I would argue that Aaron Rodgers' contract is off the beaten path as well, because
Mm.
again, I mean, there was controversy with the team. They drafted Jordan Love. Aaron got mad. They gave him this contract. It's kind of like what the Redskins did with Donovan McNabb.
Yeah,
Remember,
yeah, I
they gave him
remember
a huge
that.
contract, then they cut him.
Yeah, $80
Immediately
million
after.
contract, and then he was benched 2 weeks later.
Yeah, that's sort of what Aaron Rodgers got. So I would argue that's not a great comp, personally.
Maybe not. I mean, but I think the point is he should be getting big time money. He should be in that,
Absolutely.
$50 million ish range per year, but you have to make it so it's flexible so that it doesn't kill your cap, or you have to make it flexible so that maybe you're giving him money up front and it's not as bad down the road. So you can, because here's the thing, when quarterbacks are making that level of money, it's much harder to build a good team. And I know it's a quarterback centric league, but you need guys to throw to. You need people to block for you. Part of the problem Lamar Jackson had last year was there was no one else on that offense that was worth
They
a damn.
inexplicably got rid of Hollywood Brown. I never understood
They,
like why
they
they
got rid of
traded.
anyone with talent in
Yeah.
Baltimore. I mean, they still had a solid defense and a couple good players here and there, but like, if you who has better weapons, Baltimore or Washington? Washington, and Washington's nothing. We're not like superstars there,
Yeah.
but you know,
So this, I think, is a classic case study of what not to do. If
Mhm.
like Lamar Jackson has an asset himself, highly valuable, like you said, one of the best quarterbacks. We can argue about ranks or whatever, but Alex is right. I mean,
he's a top 5 guy
he's
somewhere.
up there at that level, roughly.
Hmm.
But why is it not working? One, he doesn't have an effective advocate. He's not an effective advocate for himself.
No.
Two, his contract demands are outrageous as compared to what the NFL wants.
Hmm.
Those two things are really conspiring against it. What would help? It would help hiring an agent and having an agent admit up front, whether publicly or privately, probably privately, that he doesn't really want a full guarantee. If you did those
Right.
two things, there might be a market for him, but there's just not right now. And I think it's a good, for those of you who are listening who aren't negotiators, I think this is um, a good case study of what not to do. And so what happens from here? I mean, you know, first of all, for Kyler, it's either find a contract or play for the Ravens.
Lamar, but
Or
yes, yeah, yeah,
what I say? Yeah, I meant
yeah.
Lamar. Yeah, I mean, and if it's not working for him, at the end of the day, Lamar's going to have to sign the franchise tag or
Hmm.
not play. Is he really willing to, sit out? And what's the tag level? 30 something million, 35 million, I
35,
think.
I think. Yeah.
Yeah. Is he really willing to miss that? We'll
Right.
see. So that is Kyler Murray. Again, I didn't want to spend too much time on it, but I think it's a really interesting business
It's
situation.
an interesting business thing from a football perspective. It's very wild what's going on. And we talk about the agent, being an advocate. The agent would also help him know what manage his expectations, I
Yes.
think, and that's a big problem I'm seeing with this too. Is I think a lot of these guys, they're young. I mean, he's what, 26?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
He probably has no idea what the expectations are for his financial market, but also if you want this level of money, you need to show this level of commitment to the team, work ethic, whatever, however you want to put it. Um, And
I don't
that's
think
another
him
thing that
sitting
makes it
out at
neat.
the end really helped him. It
It
made him
it
seem
real I
like he
think it
was a
really
baby.
didn't. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
because it at least got portrayed as he was faking it.
So you want to do a prediction? What do you think?
I mean, I'm gonna stay with the safe that he will be in Baltimore. I don't think a long term deal gets done. I wouldn't be shocked if they come to some kind of short term big money deal though. Like if it's like 2 years, 3 years, that kind of thing. And they're like, we'll give you the salary you want, but it's not long term, and we can keep working on it that way. That kind of thing.
Yeah.
I mean, I wish that we had an owner in DC who could just go try and get him, but we don't.
Well, I mean, Washington can't really bring in a cap hit of like 40
No, I
million.
know, I know.
I mean, they could if they really made some major moves and stuff. And
Yeah. Oh,
um,
speaking of, you know how Spotrac lets you like do a play with rosters and stuff like that.
yeah.
Uh, yeah, I tried doing that just see what like you'd have to cut 6, 7 big money people to get Lamar on this roster. It's
Oh yeah,
ridiculous.
you would,
Yeah.
and there's not a ton of like renegotiating contracts that can be renegotiated for
No,
significant
there
money
really
out
aren't.
there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, so that is Lamar Jackson. Now we got to move on from the NFL to a quasi sport, which is a WWE, because this is just this
It's
story.
ridiculous.
It's utterly ridiculous. It makes me laugh. Chris and I have done the WWE before. We correctly predicted that the Vince McMahon retirement was just drama, which it was.
Hmm.
So here's the latest thing. Um, this is a story from CNBC by Alex Sherman. I don't see a date on here. Oh, yeah, March 9th. WWE in talks with state gambling regulators to legalize betting on scripted match results. So, what this story is saying
So stupid.
is that the WWE is trying to work out an arrangement with state regulators wherein they will allow gambling to take place on their matches. Now, let's remind everybody that the WWE is not a sport. It is
It's
not
acting.
it's acting. And so what they are talking about and what is stated in the story is they're talking about keeping the scripts under wraps long enough to where people can bet, and then they don't tell the performers, meaning the wrestlers, until an hour or two before the match who's supposed to win. Um, I got news for everybody. This is not something you should gamble on. Okay,
No.
this is not something that states should regulate. It's like gambling on a sitcom.
Steve, I equated it to I'm going to make a bet on how this movie's ending and the movie's based on a book. You know, like that's the equivalent of what we're doing here at this
Isn't
point.
this like ripe for the high corruption at the highest levels?
Oh, it's not only right for the highest corruption at the highest level, it's right for the stupidest people to lose so much money.
Oh, I know. It's
Look,
I.
I don't have a problem with people gambling. I like it's not for me, but I don't have if you want to gamble
Oh,
and bet
sure.
on sports,
Gamble away.
that's fine. If you are going to put money down on a WWE match, burn your money. You're better off just setting afire all of the money because it's that level of stupidity. It's
Now,
just idiotic. Like, no, you should not be betting on this. You should not be betting on politics. Like, there's a thing in DC where you can actually bet on elections and how they're going to turn out, and that's ridiculous too. Don't bet on these things.
but at a minimum, at least that's not scripted.
No,
you know.
but you're also talking about ripe for corruption
Oh,
in theory.
absolutely. I agree with you. But WWE's got both. Now, the article, the column, cites as an example the Academy Awards, and
Right.
I didn't know this, and I kind of boycott the Academy Awards. I think by the time you listen to this, the Academy Awards will have taken place. Yes, isn't it
Right.
this weekend?
Yeah, yeah, it is.
I think it's today. Today being Sunday. Anyway, so apparently there is betting on the Academy Awards. But again, I will point out, as dumb as that is, the Academy Awards are not scripted.
Right.
It is in fact legitimate voting by the voters for whatever good.
Hmm.
We can debate the merits of it, but
Secret ballots and all that. Yeah.
yeah. it's at least something that is not known ahead of time. What the WWE is talking about is betting on things that they're going to script. So don't you think possibly that the gambling houses could get in bed with
Mm-hmm.
the WWE and request, especially if the performers aren't told who's supposed to win, that the
Right.
gambling houses could get in bed with WWE and demand certain outcomes based on how their betting line is going.
Hey, guess what? And I'm going to use dated references because I don't know who any modern wrestler is at this point. Stone Cold Steve Austin is getting 61% of the bets on him. He needs to lose. That's what'll
Exactly.
happen. That is the summary of how this will all go.
Yeah, and I mean, and listen, Vince McMahon is a caricature of himself at this point, but
Yeah.
I don't think he's exactly the shining, heart, the shining light on the hill of ethics. Okay, it,
No, he is not.
so I don't understand how any state could possibly think this is okay.
Yeah.
And it says that they're targeting Michigan, Colorado, and Indiana. I don't know where those states come from. Um, this is apparently according to a Michigan gaming spokesperson. So this is not a rumor. This is
Right.
something that the Michigan gaming organization actually admitted. Um, they've
Do people
registered.
have nothing else to do in Michigan? Like, just, find somewhere
Well,
else to go then. I mean, like,
see, if you've have you ever been to Detroit? Detroit has casinos.
I've never been outside the Detroit airport. So, no, I
Oh,
haven't. I didn't know they had casinos.
I have been in Detroit, and
Sure.
Detroit has casinos there, and so it is. I there's an opportunity for gambling that's already there. They've apparently already registered with the Indiana Gaming Commission. Um, Now, Colorado for its because remember I just said that WWE is targeting Colorado. Colorado apparently is quote it says, quote, the Colorado Division of Gaming told CNBC it is not currently considering and is not considered allowing sports betting wagers on WWE matches. A spokesperson noted Colorado currently has a statute prohibiting wagers on events with fixed or predicted outcomes, including the Academy Awards. So good for the state of Colorado.
Hmm.
But you would think that the WWE probably will find some state somewhere to do this.
Oh, I'm sure they will. They'll find some stupid state that just sees dollar signs, and I'm honestly surprised they're not doing it in Vegas first, because that you would think Vegas and Jersey are still the old guard of gambling states, right?
You would think, yeah, you would think,
Yeah,
but maybe that's just a step too far, even for Vegas.
yeah.
Like I've never thought we'd see the
Look,
day
we'll
when,
break your legs if you don't pay us, but we're not going to break your legs to pay them.
yeah. And so it's just it offends me at a very deep and core level that this anybody thinks that this is a thing that should
It's
happen.
just so it's next level stupidity is really what it is.
Yeah, and the other
It's
thing
yeah,
is, by the way, if you don't tell the performers who's supposed to win, but like an hour beforehand, I
right.
would assume they have to talk and plan these things out at some level.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, I don't know
Like they're
how scripted it is in terms of like, do they plan each individual move? Is it like, or are they kind of ad libbing or what? But you have to give them some warning.
well, okay. So you would probably never want to watch it, but if you want, it's a dramatization on Netflix, Glow, about the old gorgeous ladies of wrestling.
Okay.
Yeah. So they
That
kind of go
acronym
through
sounds
all.
familiar for some reason. So I think I've
Well, it
heard
was
that
an
term.
'80s women's wrestling league,
Oh, okay.
but it does go through like how they would practice and things like that, which is it's a good show about wrestling, and obviously it's dramatized and stuff like that. But like they do rehearse, they do practice. I actually went to college with a guy, and in my film school, one of the guys he was in the film program, but his dream was he wanted to be a wrestler, and he was learning how to like do the acrobatic side of it. It's a legitimate thing in that respect,
Oh, it takes
and
talent for
yeah,
sure.
yeah, yeah. It takes a ton of physical talent to do that. I don't look down on that part. It's just not for me.
And
Like,
it's not a sport. I mean,
and
it's
it
not a
no,
competition.
it's entertainment. It's not a sport.
So I
Yeah.
guess you can do all the rehearsals up
Hmm.
till the end, I guess, and
Right.
have the match planned out, and then they tell you, and then maybe do plan two endings, and then they say go with ending number one. I guess is how you do it, but
I guess so.
it's
Uh,
just it's like you said, it's ripe for corruption. It's the very
right.
definition of corrupt, and
Right.
it's something that should not not be um, be
Allowed.
done. Yeah, it's
No.
just crazy. Okay,
Yeah. Yeah.
so we thought that was a lot of fun story because it's so
It's just
unbelievable.
yeah.
So the last thing we want to address here is, I think, um, more realistic, although it still makes me question. So there's a video on CNBC called "ESPN pushes to become a hub for all sports streaming," dated
Hmm.
the 2nd of March. Um, and this is CNBC's Alex Sherman, um, who does reporting in this. And so what he's saying here, well, did you want to describe it,
I
Alex?
watched it.
Okay.
Yeah. So he's talking about um, with the way things are going with watching sporting events. ESPN wants to become the central hub, is what they call it, where you would be able to go to ESPN and get all your national games, all the stuff ESPN has, but they also are in talks with local networks and local, like, I I'll just use an example. I know you guys have talked a lot about with Major League Baseball and how every team has their own local broadcast.
Yeah, we
Uh,
did a segment on that a while ago about how
I think it was last week or 2 weeks
the
ago.
last show and
Yeah.
how the regional sports networks are dying.
Right. So they're going to try and communicate with those. And so let's say you want to go watch the Dodgers game. Well, you can go to ESPN and they will tell you here's where you can watch the Dodgers game online. And here's who you pay, and they'll help you get through all that. Basically, just centralizing everything into one site, which, look, I'm a big advocate that this is where sports needs to go as fast as possible. They need to get out of this mentality that we have to be on cable only or we have to be on broadcast only. Everything's going to be online. It's just going to happen. So it's better to have an easy way for people to access your stuff online than to make it difficult. uh, and I know they have TV rights and contracts and stuff like that they've got to deal with, but 50 years from now no one's going to have a cable TV. So
Well, okay,
you
so we talked about this on the show too before,
right.
Alex. Um, I think that the term cable TV will probably be gone, and that comes from there's literally cable from your wall that plugs into your TV
Sure.
into a via with a box as the middleman. That is what cable TV is. But what will still be around are these very same companies packaging together
Content.
broadcast outlets, which will include local TV stations. There will always be local TV because there are local things that are broadcast. People watch the local news, all of
Well,
that stuff. And so it
so
just go ahead.
to correct you or to make a distinction, that's how you see cable TV. Because I come from that AV world. When I say no more cable TV, everything's going to be basically done on a website. That's what the future, or we're
Well, I
already
was
there.
getting to that
Yeah, yeah.
because I think what won't be there won't be a cable from your wall to the TV. You just
No,
turn on your TV. It's via
there won't be
Wi-Fi.
satellites for
It's via
direct TV. There won't
Wi-Fi.
be
The
any of that.
box will
No.
be gone, but I don't necessarily think Comcast is going to disappear. Or Time Warner is going to. They're just going to package and maybe other companies. Who knows?
No, they're
Will
just going to be
package.
apps or
Yeah.
URLs or whatever. Yeah.
Now, where does this leads to ESPN? ESPN has tried. They're in the very infant stages of doing this. If you
Hmm.
notice on ESPN's website, they already list the broadcast network for these games,
Sure.
but you can't link through it. And so what they're talking about here is to have financial deals put in place with all these networks, wherein if you want to watch the Cubs and the Mariners,
Right.
then you can click on this game and you can click through to the Mariners local regional network and
Hmm.
sign in with presumably a kickback going to ESPN and
Right.
Disney.
Right. It'll all be. It's no different than, and I know you don't have one like having an Amazon Fire TV or any of that. uh, it's just going to centralize all these different things into one location. Which the funny part about it is, it's a good thing. It technically it doesn't seem like it'd be that big of a lift in the
It does
big.
not.
It's really just the contract stuff and all the legal stuff that they're going to have to get through for all these different brands because I mean, the Dodgers have their own network. Why would they want to be, to sub out to ESPN in the
Well,
end?
I
Think
bet,
about
but see, the reason why they would is the link, this hub um,
concept.
concept is one wherein ESPN doesn't control the broadcast rights. All they're doing is linking out. And so,
Right.
hypothetically, then, if you want to watch the Dodgers and the Cardinals, then you click on the Dodgers, and then that link will go to the Dodgers local
Hmm.
network, and then you subscribe there. And so it's not really so much hurting that local network because they're still getting the business. It's just the links coming from ESPN, so presumably they'd have to pay ESPN, kind of like a click-through ad.
Yeah,
You
exactly.
go to the Hog Style, you click on one of the ads, we get like 10 cents or something.
It's
When you
not
click
even that for us, but yes.
whatever the number it's very small, but
Yeah,
it's like there's a one rate if you just are on the page and you see it, and then there's another one if you click through it, a couple
exactly.
more pennies. And so that's kind of the basic concept for this. It's not a half bad concept, really. um, I think this would be I have been very discouraged with ESPN in recent years because they've gotten way too political for me, way too socially conscious. I'm not really interested in having athletes educate me on that, and so I just don't watch it anymore. But this is something that would be very helpful if you want to, God help you, watch a soccer game. I don't know why you would, but if you do,
Hmm.
go to ESPN. If you want to watch a hockey game, go to ESPN. This is the hub for all things sports.
Right.
It's good for
So
ESPN. It might be good for everybody. So that's
think
not
it
a
would
bad idea.
be. I think ESPN has been needing to restructure what they do forever because their original formula is no longer relevant. The highlight formula that's what they started with. Um, this would maintain not this would really help their relevance long term. The questions I have, and this is for all sports, what is it gonna take for these sports to realize we need to stream every single game? We can broadcast them too, but not everyone's gonna get the broadcast. Like I know you're no longer a Redskins fan. It was very hard for you to watch Redskins games because you're not in the
Oh,
market.
if you guys only knew what we went through when we were doing the hog
Right.
styes after the games, I was going to sports bars.
Yeah.
I was on these crazy websites, where they're advertising Russian brides and stuff to get
Right.
these games, and it's just crazy.
It's idiotic that all 16 or however many games there are each week are not also online, and you should just be able to go online and pay, I don't know, $5, whatever it is, to watch that game. Either that or you could do a subscription, whatever, however you want to do it.
Well, I mean, the
But
problem is that the TV contracts are so enormous
Mhm.
that they really can't afford to do that. The networks are paying so much money.
but the networks could be the ones broadcasting it. Steve,
I get it, but I know what you're saying,
Mhm.
but the networks broadcast highlight games each week. They do not they want to focus their audience.
Right.
They don't want to split their audience up into 16 different games or 8 games per network. They want
Uh,
you to watch the eyeballs on this one game. I mean, that's what they want. I'm
for the
just
national games, I get that, but local people are always going to have their teams. Like that's the nature of sports is you have your team you root for, generally speaking. I know basketball is weird and different now and people root for players, not brands or team brands as much. But right thinking people, normal people, have a team and they believe in their team through and they stick with them good or bad.
and by normal people, Alex means not young people who have grown up on rooting for players, not teams.
Right, exactly. Not stupid zoomers.
I get your
Um,
point, but I think
yeah.
the money, it's multiple billions of dollars.
Right.
I think the
Steve, there's
money is
more money to be
so
made
huge,
doing this too if you do it right.
but the contract's already in place.
Sure. I'm just saying the lift for ESPN to do their thing's not big. The lift of putting stuff you're already broadcasting on a
But they
live
don't
stream
want to
is not
split the
huge either.
audience up. They do not want. They want you to watch
Well,
their
guess what,
network.
Steve? I'm not watching baseball anymore. Do you know why? Because I got rid of cable because I'm, in my 40s, not in my, or I'm in my late 30s, turning 40, but no one my age has cable. So they're not watching baseball on cable. They're not watching anything on cable if they don't have to. You want
What
to
I'm saying is,
recapture markets? That's the only way to do it.
but what I'm saying is, these contracts are in place, and they are what they are.
Right. The contracts can always be amended
And
to
really,
do
by the
stuff.
way, I'd like to point out that the only football is the one with the major network only contracts. Okay,
Right.
baseball, the baseball broadcast deals for the national games are very, very limited.
Right.
Once a week, ESPN, a couple others here and there.
Fox still has one, right?
Yeah, basketball, they do have national cable, games a couple times a week on TBS, I believe, and
Right.
ESPN.
Not watching those either because it's on cable. I'm just saying, if you want market share, you got to go to where people are going. People are leaving the traditional way of watching
I
TV.
get
You've
it,
got
but
to embrace that as
what you're
fast as
missing,
possible.
is that these contracts are in place, and that's what they're doing.
I I'm not missing that. I'm telling you, those are bad contracts. Then your number one job to make your sport successful, every sport, is get as many eyeballs as possible.
I'm not even really disagreeing with you. I'm just telling you why it's not.
No, I understand. I think we are both in agreement on both points.
And you could make a legitimate argument that, okay, so the I don't know, the Buccaneers and the Chiefs. Granted, that's the big national game,
Right.
but if you allow Redskins, Jets, Washington Jets to be streamed at the same time live on the CBS's Paramount, right?
Sure.
And so, like, let's say CBS has got, it's got Chiefs. What did I, like,
Redskins Chiefs or
well,
what
CBS
Jets.
has like Dallas Chiefs, like
Right.
a major national game. Um, you could put Redskins Jets, which nobody, like three people would want to watch, on the website and run the same commercials, and you would still get the same total audience eyeballs on the ads.
Yeah. Or
That
more.
would be the argument.
Yeah. You're getting the same or more. Because here's the thing. If you're doing it legally that way, it's a whole lot better for me as a consumer than going to the Russian Bride website.
Absolutely, because I know them
Because
all now. Because they
yeah,
all, and they at various times they get shut down, by the FCC,
right.
and then you have to find the other one, the next
But
one.
also, it's better for my computer's health if I'm not going to those
Yeah,
websites.
because I kind of learned how to do them. It's no matter
Yeah,
what happens, close that. No matter what it says, you close every window.
right.
That's what to do. This is a lesson. So, and
Avoid
they're gonna,
pop-ups.
and
Going
some of the
on.
pop-ups are gonna look like they're legit.
Oh
But you gotta
yeah, they do.
close them all, no matter what. It's not all like Russian Bride. It's some of them are legit. You gotta keep closing every
Well,
window,
the
no
worst
matter
ones
what.
are the ones that are always going to fake it and make it look like, oh, you have a virus.
That's what I'm
Because
saying. Yeah,
yeah,
all
yeah,
that stuff you gotta. But anyway, yeah. So it would be far better for CBS if I clicked on the CBS streaming site and pulled
right,
up Jets Redskins.
right. And guess what? Like I said, they could charge you for it, and you'd probably be okay with it, if as long as it's not exorbitant.
As a general concept, at
Yeah.
least, yeah. So anyway, so to wrap this up, because we're out of time. Point here is that ESPN as nationwide international sports hub is not a dumb idea. It's the first smart thing ESPN has done in a while. And it will take a while to work out contracts and deals and stuff, but I think they'll probably make it happen.
Oh, I think they can. I mean, it again from a computer design standpoint, web design standpoint, very easy to do. You just need the contract.
Yeah, I
Like
think Alex could do it if
probably.
yeah.
I don't know what their content management system is, but I can write
Point
HTML.
is,
It's
it's
very easy.
easy
Yeah.
HTML stuff. So,
Yeah.
okay, well, that is it for the It's Just Business for this week. Please check out the Hogstye podcast, which is once a week on every Thursday. Rick Snyder's Seasons of Discontent will be back if and when Little Danny ever sells. They'll be back
Yep.
for the draft, and then they'll be back for training camp. So that's that, and we have all of our regular written content. Alex, say goodbye.
Goodbye.
Bye.